My girlfriend tracked my location to spy on me, then accused me of cheating. I proved my innocence and blocked her entire family. 30M. I'll start from the beginning with how we met. A few years ago, I was hanging out at a mutual friend's birthday party. She, my girlfriend, seemed friendly, chatty, and always eager to be around me. We bonded over silly card games and sarcastic humor. At first, her attention felt flattering. She'd send me texts that made me feel special, ask about my day, and remember little details about my routine. It was refreshing to have someone who seemed genuinely interested in me, especially since my previous relationships felt more distant. Things got serious within a few months. She introduced me to her mother and father, plus a few siblings. They all seemed polite, though I detected a curious edge. Her mother would ask invasive questions like, "How much do you make?" or "Do you plan on buying a house soon?" I shrugged it off as typical parental concern. After all, every family has its quirks, and I was used to letting small intrusions slide. Still, part of me realized her family had a tight-knit bond, maybe too tight. They seemed to be in each other's business at every turn, but I figured that was just their way. My girlfriend, for her part, was affectionate. She'd shower me with compliments, pop by my workplace with lunch, and even help tidy my place sometimes. I appreciated those gestures. Yet, I remember one evening, she brought up the idea of sharing our phone locations. "It'll be romantic," she said lightly, "to know if you're stuck in traffic or if I can surprise you somewhere." At the time, it didn't sound malicious. I'd heard couples do that, especially if they live together or travel a lot. But it felt a bit sudden, so I half-jokingly asked if we really needed it. She pouted playfully, insisting it was just for convenience. Honestly, I wasn't comfortable sharing my location 24/7. I liked privacy, even from someone I cared about. So I declined. She brushed it off that night, but a seed was planted in my mind. Her interest in my whereabouts might go deeper than simple convenience. Still, I try not to dwell on it. I didn't want to assume the worst, especially about someone I was growing to love. Our relationship progressed. We had normal ups and downs. If I didn't text back immediately, she'd sometimes ask, "Where were you?" or "Why didn't you respond?" Usually, it felt like mild possessiveness, which I could handle by reassuring her. But slowly, those questions increased in frequency. I get a barrage of texts if I went an hour without checking my phone. She'd ask for picture proof of where I was or who I was with. I confronted her once, saying, "Why do you keep asking for proof? I'm just grabbing a beer with some friends." She half laughed it off, saying, "I'm just curious." You know how paranoid I can get. She'd apologize and then be extra sweet for a while, which made me let it go. The turning point arrived on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. I'd taken a day off to help a friend move out of his small apartment across town. My girlfriend knew about it, but apparently decided that wasn't reason enough to trust my explanation. While I was lugging boxes up and down stairs, my friend asked me to check something on his phone. He'd left it in the moving truck. I pulled my own phone out of my pocket to call it, and that's when I noticed dozens of missed calls and text messages from my girlfriend. They read like frantic accusations. "Where are you really? Why won't you answer? Don't make me come find you." And so on. My chest tightened with a mix of anger and confusion. I was in a hurry, sweaty, and juggling furniture, so I texted back a quick response. "I'm busy helping." Relax. But that clearly didn't satisfy her. She kept calling, insisted on me sending pictures, and demanded to know every detail of who was there. My friend teased me, "Dude, is your girlfriend always this paranoid?" I shrugged, feeling embarrassed that he had to witness her barrage of messages. Once the move was done, I drove home to shower and decompress. I expected a stern lecture or a guilt trip from her that night, but nothing could prepare me for what actually happened. She showed up at my place unexpectedly, banged on my door, and when I opened it, she thrust her phone in my face. "Explain this," she fumed. On her screen was a map with a red dot in a location I didn't recognize. "What's that?" I asked. She glared at me. "Don't play dumb. It's your location from earlier today." Then it dawned on me, she had been tracking my location without my consent, using some app or method I never agreed to. And apparently, her data told her I was somewhere I shouldn't have been. When I told her I had no clue why the app said that, she twisted my words, insisting I'd manipulated the location on purpose to hide cheating. My jaw dropped. "You think I was hooking up with someone instead of moving furniture?" She folded her arms, looking betrayed. Yes, she hissed, and now you're lying about it. The sheer nerve of it left me stunned. She had evidently found a way to spy on me, believed the glitch or error was proof of my deception, and then had the audacity to accuse me in my own apartment. As the initial shock wore off, I felt anger surge. How dare she violate my privacy like this, and then blame me for something I didn't do? I tried to keep my voice calm. You tracked me without permission. Do you realize how messed up that is? She countered, I wouldn't have to if you weren't so suspicious. Her logic was twisted. I took a breath and said, I can prove I was helping my friend all day. Let's call him. She scoffed. You could have roped your friend into lying. That was when I realized this wasn't just simple jealousy. She was so determined to catch me doing something wrong that no amount of proof would suffice. Her eyes flickered with rage. I know you're cheating, she kept saying. That stupid location tool can't be wrong. I asked how she even got access to my location, and she claimed it was accidental at first, but then she admitted messing with my phone when I'd left it unattended. She'd installed or activated a tracker app, thinking it would give her peace of mind. The conversation escalated into shouting. I told her she was out of line, violating my privacy, and I demanded she remove whatever spyware she'd installed. She refused, still convinced her evidence was real. After nearly an hour of back and forth, I asked her to leave. She finally stormed out, yelling that she'd tell the truth to her family and that I'd be sorry. As soon as the door slammed, I felt a wave of relief. But I had no clue the storm that was about to break. Over the next day or two, my phone exploded with texts and missed calls from her entire family. Mother, father, her siblings, and even an aunt or two. They all sent messages ranging from mild curiosity, we're concerned. What's happening? To full-on insults, how dare you treat her like this after all she's done for you? It was astonishing how quickly they rallied around her. It felt like an orchestrated ambush. At first, I tried to address her parents calmly, explaining that their daughter had tracked me without permission and accused me based on faulty data. But they were having none of it. Her mother said, "Don't be ridiculous." She wouldn't go that far unless you gave her reasons to suspect something. Her father chimed in, "Cheaters always claim innocence." My jaw clenched at the assumption that I was definitely the villain. They insisted I come to their place to talk it out like adults. I hesitated. A part of me worried that stepping into their home would be an unfair setup. But I also felt a need to defend myself. So I went, wearing a calm expression but bracing for confrontation. Sure enough, they all sat in their living room, arms folded, looking at me as though I was a criminal. My girlfriend glared daggers from the corner seat. Her father took the lead, pointing at me. My daughter says you've been lying. She tracked your phone and saw you at some random address. Then you refused to come clean. I swallowed, annoyed by how easily they dismissed the possibility that the tracker could be wrong or that she might have spied on me unethically. I spoke slowly, explaining step by step how I spent the day helping my friend move. I even brought a few photos from that day, timestamped pictures of me, my friend, and all the moving boxes. My friend had verified he'd be willing to talk to them if needed, but they refused to look closely at anything I presented. Her mother waved a hand dismissively. That could have been taken on another day. Photos can be edited. Growing exasperated, I asked my girlfriend to show them the tracking app. She hesitated. Apparently, she tried to take screenshots, but the app kept glitching, giving random coordinates. She refused to accept it was an error, repeating that I must have hacked the system. I almost laughed at the absurdity. I'm not a hacker, I said, trying to keep from yelling. I have no reason to manipulate anything. Maybe it's your fancy app that's at fault. She refused to budge. Her father scowled and told me I should stop insulting their intelligence. In that moment, I realized there was no logic that would penetrate their belief. They wanted a scapegoat, and I was it. My girlfriend was so convinced of her own narrative that she turned her entire family against me. When I stood up to leave, her mother had the gall to say, "You need to apologize before walking out." Apologize for what? Being spied on? Being falsely accused? My voice trembled with frustration as I responded, "I owe no one an apology for a lie I didn't commit." Then I grabbed my jacket and left. That evening, texts poured in from her siblings. One berated me, claiming I'd shattered her trust, and another threatened to come have a talk if I continued to make her cry. I blocked their numbers one by one, deciding that dealing with them was pointless. My girlfriend, however, stayed unblocked for the moment. I was tempted to give her a final chance to realize the absurdity. But instead of remorse, she dug in deeper. Late that night, she sent me a message saying, "We can fix this, but you have to confess." My family is demanding it. My heart pounded with anger. Confess to what? I typed back, "You spied on me. You found nothing. Now you want me to lie and pretend you're right?" No. She responded with a string of insults, calling me manipulative, claiming that she had always suspected I was too secretive. At that point, I told her to stay away from me. I let her know if she continued harassing me or tried to track my phone again, I'd seek legal recourse. She flung some vile accusations and threats about how she'd smear my name online, but I realized she had no actual proof of wrongdoing because there was none. She was just flailing to regain control. The next day, her father left me an ominous voicemail. "If you break my daughter's heart, you break this family's heart. We won't let that go." I saved the recording, feeling a chill run down my spine. Part of me wondered if I needed a restraining order. The entire situation had escalated from paranoid suspicion to full-blown intimidation in a matter of days. Ironically, I found comfort in the friend whose apartment I'd helped move. He joked that we should host a big barbecue, invite them all, and show them the leftover moving boxes as proof. We laughed, but deep down, I was worried. My girlfriend was cunning enough to conjure further evidence or push some narrative that I was abusive or unfaithful. I'd seen stories online of people who had their reputations trashed by false allegations. I decided to take precautions. I changed passwords on all my accounts, made sure to remove any tracking permissions on my phone, and updated my privacy settings. In a moment of anxiety, I also turned to a coworker who used to handle tech support. They helped me confirm there were no hidden apps still lingering on my device. The sense of violation lingered, though. It wasn't just about the cheating accusation. It was that someone I trusted had so easily invaded my privacy and twisted the facts against me. Yet, the harassment from her family continued in waves. Her mother left me an angry message, ranting that I was forcing her daughter into heartbreak. A sibling tried to corner me at a grocery store, lecturing me about how I should do the right thing and come clean. I had to walk away mid-rant, ignoring the stares from other shoppers. I felt cornered. Every day, I dreaded hearing a new ding on my phone, half expecting more threats or manipulative pleas. But a bigger confrontation was brewing, one that would lead me to take drastic measures for my own peace. The final blow came the following weekend. My girlfriend showed up at my apartment again, unannounced, pounding on the door like she owned the place. Against my better judgment, I answered. She launched into a diatribe about how I had one last chance to come clean before she and her family took further steps. I asked what these steps were. She smirked and hinted that she knew people who could dig up dirt on anyone. It sounded like an empty threat, but it rattled me. I tried to remain calm. "You've already broken my trust. You spied on me, you lied about me, and you unleashed your entire family to harass me. Do you realize how toxic this is?" She crossed her arms defiantly. "If you won't admit what you did, I'll do whatever it takes to protect myself." That phrase hit me like a slap. Protect herself from what? My innocence. I told her, "Give me one shred of real evidence that I cheated. Show me an actual message or a photo that supports your theory." She flinched, eyes darting away. "I saw your location." "That's evidence enough," she insisted. I pressed on. "A location glitch is all you have? That's your proof." She glared but said nothing, her silence speaking volumes. That was the moment I realized she'd never let this go. There was no rational conversation that could dislodge her paranoia or her family's conviction. The entire story had inflated to the point where they were all too invested in it to back down gracefully. Any admission that they might be wrong would feel humiliating to them, so they continued doubling down. I took a step back and said, "If you keep accusing me without proof, you're defaming me. I have documented everything. Your messages, your family's threats. Stop now or I'll consider legal action for harassment." That set her off. She snarled, "You can't threaten me with lawyers. My family will bury you. We have connections." I didn't even know what that was supposed to mean, but it was definitely aimed at intimidation. I quietly opened my phone's voice recorder, setting it in my pocket to capture her outburst. She ranted about how I was nothing without her, how she'd ruined my reputation by telling everyone I was a serial cheater. The more she spoke, the more I felt a cold resolve harden in me. This wasn't love. This was obsession and control. I told her to leave or I'd call the police. She stared at me hatefully before marching out, banging the door shut behind her. That same night, I sat in my bedroom, reviewing the recordings, texts, and screenshots I'd gathered. It dawned on me that, beyond blocking them, I might need a restraining order if they continued. The mention of digging up dirt and having connections rang ominously in my head. But I also knew they had nothing real to use against me. Their strategy was intimidation, pure and simple. I decided I'd had enough. I typed out a concise text to her. Do not contact me again. Your allegations are false, and your behavior is unacceptable. I'm blocking all communication with you and your family. Any further harassment will be handled by legal means. Then I hit send. Sure enough, the blowback was immediate. Her father tried calling. Her mother left voicemails, wailing about how I was destroying their daughter. Siblings texted me nonsense about how real men fight for a relationship instead of cutting ties. I ignored all of it, systematically blocking every number that popped up. Even though I felt justified, I was on edge. My phone kept lighting up with new unknown numbers. Apparently, they were using relatives or friends to get around the blocks. I blocked those too. The avalanche of messages was astounding. In a way, it confirmed that severing contact was the right move. They were showing me exactly how out of control they were. Eventually, I powered off my phone and went to bed, determined to get some peace. The next morning, I turned it on to see if anything had died down. There were more missed calls, but no voicemails that time. A single text from a new number read, "You made your choice. Don't regret it." I immediately blocked that number as well. I went to work trying to focus on everyday tasks, but my mind kept drifting to the fiasco. I knew blocking them was step one. Step two was living my life unafraid of their threats. My coworker, who'd helped me with phone privacy, asked how things were. I told them I was in the process of cutting all ties. They encouraged me to stay strong and document everything. It might fizzle out once they realize you're serious, they said. I hope they were right. Days turned into a week, and I only received a couple more stray messages from unknown contacts, which I blocked immediately. Slowly, it became quiet, like the eye of a storm passing. I held my breath, waiting. Part of me expected a surprise ambush at my job or some wild rumor on social media. But surprisingly, nothing of that sort came. Maybe they found a new drama to latch onto or realized they'd never coerce me into compliance. Maybe my girlfriend was too embarrassed to keep pushing, knowing she had zero tangible evidence for her accusations. During that lull, I finally exhaled. I told my friends the full story. Some were aghast. Others joked that it sounded like a movie plot. My friend who moved apartments joked, "Guess they really wanted to prove you were lifting boxes for a secret lover." We laughed, but inside, I felt a flicker of sadness. A relationship I once cherished was now in ruins, simply because my girlfriend let paranoia and control override any trust. A couple of weeks later, I received one last message from a new phone number. Turned out it was her sister writing a surprisingly calm text. "I want to hear your side of the story. I think my family might have overreacted." I stared at the screen, debating if I should engage. Part of me was curious. Maybe they realized I wasn't the villain. But I was wary. This could be a setup to reel me back in. After a few minutes of thought, I decided not to reply. I'd spent too much energy already defending myself. If her sister truly wanted the truth, she could figure it out from the mountains of evidence I'd offered before. I blocked that number too, effectively ending any direct line of communication with her entire family. My heart felt heavy, but also relieved, like closing a door on a room filled with chaos. Time passed. A friend of mine who's still connected to them on social media told me that my ex-girlfriend posted vague messages about betrayal and men who lie, but she never mentioned me by name. It seemed like she was saving face, painting herself as the wounded party without providing details. I couldn't be bothered to defend myself publicly. My real circle of friends knew the truth, and that was enough. For a while, I expected some dramatic retaliation, a defamation campaign, or them confronting me at work. But none of that happened. Perhaps they realized that continuing would only expose their lack of evidence. My ex-girlfriend and her family had reached a dead end in their campaign to label me a cheater. Reflecting on the ordeal, I learned a harsh lesson about boundaries and red flags. When someone insists on constant proof of your whereabouts, when their jealousy becomes invasive and manipulative, that's a sign the relationship isn't healthy. I also realized how crucial it is to document everything if someone starts making false accusations. In today's world, people can spin stories online in a heartbeat. Having evidence might be the only way to protect yourself from lies. As for me, I'm moving forward, maintaining a close circle of friends who respect my privacy and trust my word. I've taken a break from dating to focus on hobbies, like weekend trips, picking up an old interest in painting, and just enjoying a life free from the suffocating drama I endured. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if my ex-girlfriend truly believed I was cheating, or if she just needed an excuse to control every aspect of my life. Maybe it's a bit of both. Either way, I have no regrets about cutting ties. The final straw was her violating my privacy, refusing to admit her mistake, and enlisting her entire family in a baseless crusade against me. When trust is broken so thoroughly, there's no easy path back. In the end, I stood up for myself, proved my innocence, and walked away from a toxic situation. Blocking her entire family felt extreme, but it was the only way to reclaim my peace. I now understand that respect and trust are non-negotiable in a relationship. If someone you love crosses that line, you either confront it head-on or let it consume you. I made my choice, and though it was painful, it gave me back my freedom. So, was I wrong for blocking them all after I proved I wasn't cheating? I don't think so. Some might say it's harsh, but I consider it self-preservation. The lesson here is clear. If a partner stoops to stalking and false accusations, it's best to remove yourself from their grasp entirely. I'm living proof that sometimes the healthiest closure is cutting off every toxic tie. And I can breathe easier knowing I stood my ground, even when they tried everything in their power to paint me as the bad guy.